The plane shuddered as it hit turbulence over the Atlantic, and Elias Harper gripped the armrest, his knuckles whitening against the supple leather of his first-class seat. In the row ahead, a woman's sharp gasp cut through the cabin's hum, her hand flying to her swollen belly, as if to shield the life inside from the sky's sudden wrath. Elias unbuckled before the seatbelt sign could ding off. Already moving, his heart pounding not from fear, but from that instinctive pull he could never quite name, the one that made him say yes when every fiber screamed no. By the time the flight attendant reached her, Elias was there, his voice steady as he offered his seat without a second thought, the words tumbling out like a confession he hadn't planned to make. Elias Harper had always been the guy who fixed things for other people, even when his own world was cracking at the seams. At 32, he carried the weight of Seattle's perpetual drizzle in his bones, though he'd traded the Pacific Northwest's misty embrace for New York's relentless grind 5 years ago. Architecture was his armor, a sleek Manhattan firm where he designed high-rises that pierced the clouds, monuments to ambition he no longer felt. But lately, the blueprints blurred, and the late nights blurred into something sharper, loneliness sharpened to a blade's edge. This flight was his escape hatch, a solo trip back to Portland, Maine, for a cousin's wedding he dreaded more than death. Portland wasn't home anymore, not since his parents' divorce splintered the family like cheap plywood, not since he'd buried his coming-out rage in a string of anonymous hookups that left him hollower each time. He booked first class on impulse, a small rebellion against the economy-class grind of his 20s, telling himself it was for the legroom, not the isolation. Boarding at JFK had been a ritual of detachment, a stiff whiskey in the lounge, scrolling through Grindr profiles he wouldn't message, the rain lashing the windows like accusations. Now, mid-Atlantic, the storm outside mirrored the one brewing in seat 2A. The woman, mid-30s, maybe, with auburn curls matted by sweat and wide blue eyes rimmed red, clutched her armrest as another contraction rippled through her. "It's too early," she whispered to no one, her voice a fragile thread. Her name was Clara Voss. He'd learn later, a graphic designer from Brooklyn fleeing a messy breakup for her sister's place in Boston. Elias didn't hesitate. "Here," he said, sliding into the aisle with the grace of someone who'd rehearsed this in his head 1,000 times. "Take my seat. It's wider, and you've got more room to breathe." The flight attendant, a harried woman named Rita with a name tag askew, blinked at him. "Sir, we can." "No, really. I'm good back there." He flashed a smile that didn't reach his eyes, the one he'd perfected in boardrooms and bedrooms alike. Clara protested weakly, but her body betrayed her, another wave of pain bending her forward. Elias helped her gather her things, a dog-eared paperback, a half-eaten protein bar, an ultrasound photo peeking from her wallet like a secret talisman. As she shuffled forward, he caught sight of the man in 2B, the seat beside hers, broad-shouldered, early 40s maybe, with salt and pepper hair cropped close and a jaw that could cut glass. The guy looked up, surprise flickering in his storm-gray eyes, and for a split second, Elias felt seen, not as the polite stranger, but as something rawer. "Thanks, man," the stranger said, his voice low and gravelly, laced with a faint Texas drawl that warmed the cabin's chill. "That was decent of you." Elias shrugged, heat creeping up his neck as he retreated to economy, wedged between a snoring salesman and a college kid blasting EDM through leaky earbuds. Decent. The word stung, a polite dismissal he'd heard too often from men who sensed his edges and pulled back. He popped his noise-canceling headphones on, queuing up a playlist of Bon Iver tracks that always dragged him under. Lyrics about hollow bones and quiet wars. The plane leveled out, but his mind didn't. What if he'd stayed? What if that stranger's gaze had lingered? Hours blurred into the monotonous drone of recycled air. Elias dozed fitfully, dreams laced with blueprints of houses that collapsed into oceans, faces from his past swimming up like ghosts. His ex, Theo, with that easy laugh that turned cruel. His father, distant even in memory, muttering about fixing what's broken, while ignoring the son who'd always felt like the flaw. He woke to the captain's voice crackling over the intercom. "Folks, we're about an hour out of Logan. But heads up, we've got a medical situation up front." His stomach dropped. "Clara." He craned his neck, but the curtain blocked his view. Whispers rippled through the cabin like wind through dry grass. By the time the seatbelt sign illuminated, Rita was paging for any doctors on board, her tone edged with urgency. Elias unbuckled anyway, slipping past the do not disturb glares to peer through the gap. Chaos in miniature. Clara was on the floor now, converted into a makeshift bed with blankets and pillows, her face ashen, sweat beading on her forehead. Breathing exercises from the emergency kit lay discarded beside her. And there, kneeling with a calm that bordered on reverence, was the stranger from 2B, Rowan Hale, as Elias would soon know him, his sleeves rolled up, stethoscope dangling from his neck like a lifeline. A pediatrician from Austin, flying standby after a conference, Rowan moved with the precision of someone who'd stared down worse than this. Contractions are 5 minutes apart, Rowan said to Rita, his voice steady as he monitored Clara's pulse. Baby's crowning. We need to deliver now. Clara's cries were soft at first, then sharper, a sound that clawed at Elias's chest. He hovered in the galley, unnoticed, until Rowan glanced up, those gray eyes locking on his again. You, the guy who gave up his seat. Grab those gloves from the kit, would you? And towels. Fresh ones. Elias nodded, hands trembling as he complied, the latex snapping against his skin like a vow. He wasn't a doctor. Hell, he'd faint at the sight of blood on a good day. But something in Rowan's command pulled him in. He knelt beside them, passing supplies, his free hand finding Clara's in the dim cabin light. You're doing great, he murmured, the words for her but aimed at the fear gnawing his own gut. Just breathe with me. The berth unfolded in fragments, the plane dipping into descent, the cabin hushed as passengers averted eyes or stole glances. Rowan's murmured instructions, his large hands gentle yet sure. Clara's guttural push, a release that echoed like thunder. And then, the cry. Small, furious, slicing through the recycled air like a promise. A boy, tiny and slick, his first wail a rebellion against the world that had rushed him into it. Rowan wrapped him in a warmed blanket, severing the cord with Kit's scissors, his face breaking into a grin that transformed him, lines softening, eyes crinkling with a joy Elias hadn't seen in years. He's perfect, Rowan said, placing the bundle in Clara's arms. She sobbed, a sound of pure unraveling, and Elias felt it too, tears blurring his vision as he wiped her brow. In that suspended moment, as the wheels kissed the tarmac at Logan, Elias met Rowan's gaze over the newborn's downy head. No words, just a nod. A bridge extended across the gulf of strangers. Paramedics boarded minutes later, whisking Clara and the baby to Mass General, but not before she clutched Elias's hand. You stayed, she whispered. Thank you. Rowan lingered, signing discharge forms with the ground crew. That was you, right? The seat. His drawl wrapped around the question like smoke. Name's Rowan. And you just midwifed your first delivery, partner. Elias, he replied, voice rough. And I mostly passed towels. But yeah, wild way to end a flight. Rowan chuckled, a low rumble that vibrated through Elias's ribs. Wild's one word for it. Listen, Clara's sister's picking her up, but they're short on hands tonight. You got plans in Boston? Elias blinked, the wedding in Portland suddenly a distant echo. Not really. Just passing through. Good. Because this little guy's already rewriting schedules. Come with. Moral support for the new mom brigade. It was madness, jet-lagged, heart still racing from the adrenaline crash, but Elias said yes. Because in the fluorescent glare of the jet bridge, with Rowan's hand clapping his shoulder, he felt the first crack in his armor. A possibility, fragile as that newborn cry, whispering that maybe, just maybe, giving up a seat could lead to claiming something more. The hospital waiting room smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee, the kind that brewed in urns older than the building itself. Elias slumped into a vinyl chair, the events of the last hour replaying in kaleidoscope flashes, the plane's descent, the baby's first breath, Rowan's steady presence like an anchor in the storm. Clara's sister, Mia, a wiry woman in her 40s with the same auburn curls, had swept in like a force of nature, hugging Elias and Rowan as if they'd hung the moon. You're heroes, she'd declared, her Boston accent clipping the words sharp. Both of you. Coffee's on me. Now, as Mia paced outside the delivery ward, Rowan slid into the seat beside Elias, 2 styrofoam cups steaming between them. Black, 2 sugars. Hope that's your poison. His knee brushed Elias's accidentally on purpose, a spark that lingered. Thanks. Elias sipped, the bitterness grounding him. You do that a lot. Deliver miracles at 30,000 feet. Rowan leaned back, stretching his legs until their boots nearly touched. First time on a bird, but yeah, miracles are my day job. Pediatric oncology back in Austin. kids fighting battles bigger than any turbulence. His tone dipped, shadowed by something Elias recognized, the weight of too many losses carried alone. Elias nodded, tracing the rim of his cup. Architecture. I build things that last, or try to. Lately, feels like I'm just sketching sandcastles. He hadn't meant to share that, but Rowan's quiet intensity drew it out, like confession in a dimly lit bar. They talked then, words unfurling like a delayed flight's worth of baggage finally claimed. Rowan, 41, divorced from a college sweetheart who'd realized her straightness too late, now raising a teenage daughter, Lila, with the help of a co-parenting app and sheer stubborn will. No current entanglements. Too messy, he said with a wry smile. But life's too short for half measures. Elias shared fragments. The firm in New York that devoured his soul, the ex who'd cheated with his best friend, leaving scars that itched like phantom limbs. I don't do messy anymore, Elias admitted. Safer that way. Rowan's eyes softened, reading the subtext. Safer's a lonely altitude, Eli. Trust me, I flew it for years. Mia burst back, and before Elias could respond, her face alight. You can see them. Clara's asking for her knights in shining armor. The room was a sanctuary of beeps and soft light. Clara propped up in bed, the baby, named Theo, after her grandfather, nestled against her chest. The name hit Elias like a gut punch, his own ghost stirring, but he swallowed it down, cooing over the tiny fists and rosebud mouth. Rowan checked vitals with professional detachment masking fierce tenderness, his finger tracing the baby's palm until it curled around him. Family's everything, Clara murmured, exhaustion slurring her words. You too. You're stuck with us now. Godparents? Swear it. They laughed it off, but as they left the ward hours later, dawn creeping over the Charles River, Elias felt the hook sink deeper. Rowan walked him to the rental car lot, the city waking in fits of honks and steam from manhole covers. Portland's that way, right? Maine boy. Born and raised, technically. But Seattle dragged me west, New York yanked me east. Portland's just nostalgia with bad lobster rolls. Rowan grinned, pulling out his phone. Gimme your number. Lila's got a thing for architecture. She's designing her dream treehouse. Might need a consult. Elias hesitated, the old walls rising, but typed it in anyway. Deal. But only if you promise no more airborne births. No promises. Rowan's hand lingered on his arm, thumb brushing the crook of his elbow, a touch electric, intentional. Safe travels, Elias Harper. And hey, thanks for the seat. Best upgrade I never knew I needed. As Elias drove north on I-95, the skyline shrinking in his rear view, his phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Rowan here. Theo's sleeping like a champ. You? Get some rest. You earned it. Coffee in Austin sometime. He smiled, the road unspooling like possibility. For the first time in years, the horizon didn't feel like an end. Portland welcomed him with salt air and fog-shrouded streets, the wedding a blur of forced smiles and small talk under a tent strung with fairy lights. His cousin Becca, radiant in ivory lace, pulled him aside during the reception. You look different, Eli. Less like you're about to bolt. He chuckled, swirling champagne. Rough flight, but good rough. He didn't mention the baby, the doctor, the text that had pinged 3 times since Logan, Rowan checking in on Clara, sharing a photo of Lila's latest sketch, a casual missed your voice already that landed like a skipped stone across his guarded heart. The ceremony dredged up memories he'd packed away. Summers in the family cottage on Casco Bay, his father teaching him to bait hooks while avoiding questions about school dances, his mother, post-divorce, whispering that love wasn't a straight line. Coming out at 18 had been a quiet detonation, his dad's silence louder than any shout, his mom's hugs fierce but fleeting. Portland held the boy who dreamed of building bridges, not burning them. Back in his hotel room overlooking the harbor, Elias poured a nightcap and scrolled Rowan's sparse socials, a profile pic of him and Lila at a Rangers game, her braces gleaming in a grin, posts about rare remissions, kids beating odds like drum solos. No recent dates, no brooding shirtless shots, just a man who'd learned to carry joy in his pockets like loose change. Tell me about Austin, Elias texted, emboldened by the whiskey's glow. What's a Texas heart look like? Rowan's reply came swift, big, stubborn, full of barbecue and bad decisions. Yours? Wired for flight paths, but maybe ready for a layover. The banter flowed into dawn, words bridging the miles like invisible runways. Elias flew back to New York the next day, The skyline's jagged teeth no longer a threat, but a challenge. Work piled up, revisions on a midtown tower, client lunches that tasted like ash. But Rowan's messages were beacons. A voice note of Lila practicing violin, off-key and earnest. A photo of Theo's first checkup, captioned "Your godson says hi. Demands blueprints for his crib upgrade." 2 weeks in, Elias caved. A conference in Dallas? Close enough. Rowan picked him up at baggage claim in a battered Ford pickup, Lila shotgun with a sign. "Welcome, Uncle Eli? Mom says that's temporary." The drive to Rowan's ranch-style house on the outskirts was a revelation. Scrubland rolling under endless blue, horses dotting the horizon like punctuation. Lila, 14 going on 40, grilled him on sustainable design over tacos, her question sharp as her dad's gaze. "Dad says you're the guy who gave up first class for a stranger. That's badass. Most people just post about it." Elias flushed, glancing at Rowan, who winked from the grill. "Kid's got a point. You're not most people." Dinner stretched into stargazing on the back porch, Lila eventually yawning off to bed, leaving the men with beers and the cricket chorus. Conversation turned tides, Rowan's marriage unraveling over late-night confessions he couldn't unhear. Elias's Theo, the ex, not the baby, whose betrayal had been a slow poison, discovered in a shared Dropbox of hotel receipts. "I built our life," Elias said, voice cracking. "And he tore it down for what? A thrill." Rowan set his bottle down, hand finding Elias's across the Adirondack chair arms. "Grief's a thief, Eli. But you're still standing. That's the win." Their first kiss happened there, under the Milky Way sprawl, tentative, then consuming, Rowan's stubble rasping against Elias's skin like sandpaper on fresh wood. It tasted of hops and hesitation, but when they broke apart, foreheads pressed, Elias whispered, "This scares the hell out of me." "Me too," Rowan admitted. "But worth it." "Yeah. God, yeah." The weekend blurred into stolen moments. Morning runs through mesquite trails, where Rowan's laughter echoed like birdsong. Lazy afternoons sketching treehouse plans with Lila, her enthusiasm a balm. Nights tangled in Rowan's bed, bodies mapping unfamiliar territories with the reverence of explorers. Elias flew back to New York lighter, blueprints in hand, now carrying traces of Texas dust. But cracks formed early. A call from Clara, Theo's jaundice flaring, a routine scare that sent Rowan into overdrive, canceling their planned FaceTime. Then work, a deadline crunch that swallowed Elias whole, his responses lagging from hours to days. "Miss you," Rowan texted. "Lila's asking when you're building her castle." "Soon," Elias replied, guilt gnawing. Swamped. The distance amplified doubts. Elias's firm partner, Victor, a silver fox type with a predatory smile, leaned in too close during reviews, compliments laced with innuendo. "You seem distracted, Harper. Need to blow off steam." Elias rebuffed him, but the seed planted. Was Rowan just another escape, a rebound wrapped in heroism? Thanksgiving loomed, Clara inviting them both to Brooklyn for Theo's first solids. Elias booked the flight, but en route, turbulence, literal this time, rattled him. At LaGuardia, Rowan waited, arms open, but the hug fell off, Rowan's eyes shadowed. "Everything good?" Elias asked, hailing a cab. Rowan hesitated. "Yeah, just. Lila's bio mom showed up last week. Wants more time. Stirring shit." Elias's stomach twisted. "And you?" "Figuring it. But hey, family first, right?" The weekend was a tightrope. Theo's gummy grins melting tensions. Clara's apartment a cozy chaos of onesies and takeout. Nights in a borrowed air mattress turned urgent. Rowan's hands urgent on Elias's skin, as if to anchor against the pull. But whispers crept in. Rowan's phone buzzing with text from his ex, Mara, pleading for co-parenting tweaks that veered into emotional minefields. Back in Austin, the dam broke. Elias, mid-revision on Lila's treehouse, got a call from Victor. "Harper, you're off the Midtown project. Client wants fresh blood, someone without the distractions." Distractions. Code for his late nights, his divided heart. Rage boiled, but beneath it, fear. Was he sabotaging again, chasing a life that didn't fit? He drove to Rowan's unannounced, the pickup's tires crunching gravel. Rowan answered shirtless, flour-dusted from baking with Lila, surprise melting into concern. "Eli? What's wrong?" "Everything." The words spilled. The firing, the doubts, the terror that this, us, was just another structure doomed to collapse. Rowan pulled him inside, away from Lila's curious ears, into the kitchen where dough rose like unanswered questions. "You're not losing me," Rowan said, cupping Elias's face. "But you gotta let me in. All the way." Elias searched those gray eyes, finding the same fear mirrored back. "What if I can't? What if I'm broken blueprint? Then we redraw it. Together." They made love on the living room rug that night, slow and searing, bodies a dialogue of forgiveness. Lila found them at breakfast, rolling her eyes but smirking. "Gross. But points for teamwork, Dad." Christmas came wrapped in tinsel and tentative plans. Elias subletting his Manhattan walk-up, scouting Austin firms with remote options. Theo's second flight, Clara to Texas for a visit, brought the baby brigade together, little hands grasping fingers in a circle of makeshift family. But shadows lengthened. Mara's visits escalated, her just friends, lunches with Rowan spilling into late nights, old flames flickering in wine-fueled talks. Elias saw it first in the silences, Rowan's evasions, the way his hand pulled back mid-caress. "Talk to me." Elias pressed one February evening, snow dusting the Austin hills like forgotten confetti. Rowan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Mara, she wants us back. For Lila. Says we were good once, could be again." The air thinned. "And you?" I told her no. "But it's got me thinking, about stability, about not fucking up my kid more than I already have." Elias's chest caved. "So I'm the fuck-up? The distraction?" "No, God, Eli, that's not." But it was. The fight erupted, words like shrapnel, Elias accusing Rowan of hedging bets, Rowan hurling back Elias's walls, the flight-borne romance now a cage. "You gave up a seat like it was nothing," Rowan shouted. "But your heart? That's first class only. No room for the mess of real life." Elias stormed out, driving through the night to a motel off I-35, the betrayal echo of Theo's, the ex, not the child, knife twist. Days blurred into radio silence, his phone a graveyard of unsent apologies. Clara called, voice thick. "Theo's asking for his uncles. Fix this, you idiot." Spring thawed the literal ice, but not the frost between them. Elias relocated tentatively, crashing with a college buddy in Dallas, blueprints gathering dust. A package arrived, Lila's treehouse model, meticulously built, with a note in Rowan's scrawl, "Even broken things can stand tall. Come home." He did, not to the ranch, but to Mass General. Theo's fever spiking, Clara frantic. Rowan was there, hollow-eyed in the piku, holding the boy's tiny hand. Their eyes met across the isolette, raw with the what-ifs. "I thought I'd lost you both," Elias whispered, collapsing into a chair. "You didn't." Rowan's voice broke. "Mara's out, for good. I chose us. Messy, walls and all." The reconciliation was quiet. Hands clasped over monitors, promises forged in beeps and breaths. Theo pulled through, his recovery a metaphor neither voiced, but both felt. Back in Austin, they rebuilt, Elias joining a boutique firm, designing eco-homes that wove into the land. Rowan leaning on therapy apps for co-parenting scars. Lila dubbing their blended crew the Irregulars, her treehouse rising in the backyard like a testament. One humid July dawn, as cicadas hummed their symphony, Rowan proposed, not with rings, but with a sketch. A house, their house, on a plot overlooking the Colorado River. "No first-class escapes," he said, kneeling in the dew-slick grass. "Just us, building something that lasts." Elias pulled him up, kissing him fierce under the rising sun. "Yes, 1,000 times." Clara visited that fall, Theo toddling now, his first steps echoing across the wide plank floors. "Look what you started," she teased, bouncing the boy on her hip. "One seat, one life. Chaos theory, baby." Elias watched Rowan scoop Theo up, Lila trailing with crayons and demands, and felt the ache ease, not gone, but transmuted into grace. In the heart of Texas, far from rainy coasts and jagged skylines, he'd found not perfection, but home, a structure of scars and second chances, where love wasn't given up, but claimed, messy and true. The years folded like well-worn pages. Lila's high school graduation, her speech thanking, the dads who taught me blueprints beat bloodlines. Theo's preschool plays, where Elias played the reluctant dragon, Rowan's laughter booming from the front row. Elias's firm thrived, his designs earning nods in Architectural Digest, sustainable havens that whispered of roots reclaimed. But life, that stubborn architect, threw curveballs. Rowan's clinic expanded, swallowing weekends. Elias's wanderlust flickered, an itch for coastal air. They navigated with date nights into Carius, therapy sessions where vulnerability was the mortar. One night, after a row over forgotten anniversaries, Rowan traced Elias's wedding band, simple tungsten, engraved with coordinates of that fateful flight. "We almost lost this," he murmured. Elias nodded, throat tight. "But we didn't. That's the miracle." Clara remarried in Brooklyn, Theo flower boy in a tiny tux, the wedding a bridge back east. As vows exchanged under autumn maples, Elias caught Rowan's eye, the memory of their own quiet ceremony. Backyard, Lila officiating with a Nerf sword, flooding back. Later, over cake, Clara pulled them aside. "You two. You're the family I didn't know I needed." That plane, best delay ever. Winter brought news. Rowan, mid-rounds, collapsing from exhaustion, a warning shot from burnout's arsenal. Elias cleared his calendar, becoming nurse, cook, the steady hand Rowan had always been. In the quiet hospital hours, they talked futures, not grand plans, but the small graces, adopting a rescue mutt, planting a garden that actually grew, watching Theo and Lila grow into echoes of themselves. Spring bloomed forgiveness. Recovery walks turned to runs, then to proposals of expansion. Lila off to UT Austin for engineering, Theo starting kindergarten with a backpack bigger than him. Elias designed their forever home, an addition with a nursery, just in case. Though kids weren't the goal, legacy was, in the lives they'd woven. One eclipse-lit evening, as shadows danced across the river, Rowan pulled Elias onto the porch swing. "Remember that flight? Thought it was just turbulence." Elias leaned in, breath mingling. "Turned out to be the calm before us." Their kiss deepened, the world fading to heartbeats and whispers. In the tapestry of betrayals past, exes who fled, jobs that crumbled, they'd forged resilience, a love that bent but never broke, human in its flaws, boundless in its reach. Theo's 8th birthday fell on a sweltering June day, the backyard alive with water balloons and shrieks. Lila, home from college, manned the grill with the focus of a surgeon, flipping burgers while regaling Theo with tales of freshman pranks. Clara and her husband, Nate, arrived with armloads of gifts, their toddler in tow, a cousin for Theo to boss around. Elias watched from the kitchen window, icing a cake lopsided with fondant stars. Rowan sidled up behind him, arms encircling his waist, chin on his shoulder. "You see that? Our chaos. Our miracle," Elias corrected, turning to steal a kiss dusted with sugar. The word hung sweet, a nod to the boy who'd crash-landed into their lives, binding threads across states and scars. As the sun dipped, guests gathered for stories. Clara recounting the birth with dramatic flair, omitting the panic for the wonder. Lila sketching caricatures on napkins, capturing Rowan's exaggerated drawl. When it was Elias's turn, he faltered, the weight of years pressing. "I was running that day," he said softly, Theo curled in his lap. "From everything. But giving up that seat, it gave me you all." Theo yawned, fist in his mouth. "Uncle Eli's plain story? Again?" Rowan chuckled, ruffling the boy's curls. "Every time, kiddo. It's the one where heroes show up." Night fell gentle, fireflies winking like conspirators. Lila strummed guitar by the pit, songs of lost loves and found homes. Clara tucked Theo in the guest room, her voice a lullaby bridge to dreams. Alone at last, Elias and Rowan swayed on the deck, slow dancing to crickets and memory. 10 years, Rowan murmured. From strangers to this. Elias pulled back, eyes tracing the lines fate had etched. Crow's feet from laughter, furrows from fights won. Worth every mile. In that Texas twilight, with the river murmuring secrets, they stood as testament. That one act of grace, a seat surrendered, could chart a course to forever. Not without storms, but through them, love as compass, family as shore. And in the quiet, the heart whispered its truth. We are all passengers, but some journeys redefine the map.